prior to coming to Interface, we used a very simple Google form. And I know a lot of team leaders use Google Forms because, most of us are using Google as a platform to manage your email, the Google Drive, the whole G Suite of services. And
Yep.
so, using forms in there was just a way to have a questionnaire, either go out to a customer or internally to be able to get support and services. And so when I first saw Interface and I saw someone had an embedded form, I'm like, wow, that's interesting. I don't have to actually have a separate system and now have all that information residing on a Google spreadsheet that the team really doesn't have access to. And so when we started having those conversations, you guys kind of opened up my eyes that, hey, there are a lot more forms that we can be using to drive our business. And so now we have the embedded form with the Interface 2.0. And so for us, all we're going to do, if let's just say we're going to book an appointment. Right now, I see that this person's in lead stage, which means that they're getting automations and any emails that have to be with someone that we have never had a conversation with. We don't know who they are, and we're just trying to get them to reach out. If I want to take that person and now create an opportunity, I'm going to say they're either a buyer or a seller. In this case, I'm going to say that they're a buyer. And then I'm going to choose what buyer forms do I have? Do I want to just add them to my pipeline? Do I want to set an appointment? Once I've set an appointment, do I want to go back and disposition that? And I can do that as a text message and do it right from my phone, or I can actually come right back into the form. Or did I get a buyer brokerage agreement signed? So I'm just going to say, hey, look, we're going to go ahead and set an appointment for this person. The form comes in. Who was it set by? Was it set by an ISA or was it an OSA? I'm setting it for myself, so I'm the OSA. And then I'm going to choose myself in the list. And then all I'm going to do is start putting in the dates, all the stuff that I already know. I'm going to do an appointment. It's going to be this afternoon. It's going to be at 5 p.m. And what's the duration? I'm going to go an hour. Where's the location? I'm either going to meet at my office, Zoom, inquiry address. So I'm just going to say it's going to be by Zoom because we love Zoom appointments. And then the appointment type, I'm going to do a buyer consultation. It's actually going to be a Zoom call. So that's my appointment type. And all of these you guys actually pulled directly from our follow-up boss appointment types and appointment types and outcomes. And then I would enter my Zoom link that I'm going to do on that appointment and anything else that happens to go with this. Now, the beautiful thing about this is that whenever this is now put in here, and we will discuss the map of St. Augustine, Florida. Okay. And then now I'm just giving a little bit of information about the buyer itself. And have they been pre-approved? Yes. Inquiry address. I'm just going to do test, and additional info, none. And now I'm going to submit that. And now some automation is going to happen. The form has now been pinned. It's now a note right within Follow-Up Boss. I should have gotten an email from this confirming that appointment. The appointment is now set within Follow-Up Boss. A new deal is created. And now I've got a way to start tracking this person. And now my stage is now moved to appointment set. And depending on what you have set up for any sort of automation, some of our stages, when either the FUB stage changes or the deal stage over here changes, we have some additional automation that goes out. So like if we were to move this to a pending, the person would start getting information and emails, things that we want them to know about what it's like to be under contract, what to expect next. And it's all those things that you have the opportunity to create automations to start. They only work if people are using the right stages and using the right follow-up boss stages and being able to, in this particular case, track off of appointments. So that's what I've loved is that it's made it super simple that instead of me having to come over and do 3 different things after
Mm.
already creating an appointment anyway. So if I were just creating an appointment just in FUB, I had to do all those things anyway, or
Yep.
most of them. And so just a couple of extra clicks, I got more information and more stuff is done for me. And we take the guesswork out of, what stage should it be? The agent
Yep.
doesn't have to worry about moving something. So that's that's what our appointment set and what each of these individual forms will end up doing.
Yeah, yeah. And what's awesome about the forms is you can require certain fields be submitted. And so then you know that your automation is going to run correctly because the fields that the different automation is dependent on is going to get filled out. Where, as you, like you mentioned before, if you're relying on a agent to remember to mention the TC in a note, that's only going to happen some percent of the time, less than 100%.
Correct.
And when you require it on the form, you know it's going to happen every single time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so now if I need to disposition this, so we've gone on the appointment.
Yeah.
And normally I would have that text message. I don't even have to come right back in here, but you guys send the text message. I click on that text message, and then all I'm going to do is I'm going to disposition this buyer, and I'm going to fill out the form.
And to clarify that for everyone, so when the appointment form is submitted, we schedule a text to go out to the assigned agent after the appointment, and you can set up multiple reminder texts. So if they don't fill it out the first time, you can have a backup text go the next day, which will be a link to the form that says what happened on the appointment. And so it's the same form you're looking at right now. They would just fill out on their phone.
And so I'm going to go in and say, did this happen? Yes, no, or rescheduled. Those are really my only options, right? So I would say, yeah, it absolutely happened. We met today. And then what was the outcome? And again, these are the outcomes directly, the ones that we felt like we wanted to be tracking and Follow Up Boss. You guys pulled those directly over. Since this is a buyer, it's a BBA signed. And any notes, I've just may put ready to purchase when they find the right home. All right. So now that's going to get added as a note. And what are the steps next? Nothing. And I'm just going to submit that form over. And then you should see that pop in here. And then we have these set up so that whenever these forms are completed, they're actually going to our entire administrative team. So we use one email address. It's a group email, admin@FloridaCoastal Team. And that goes to me, our sales director, our director of growth, our closing coordinator, our listing coordinator, and our virtual assistants. So that way I don't have to determine who needs to see it. If they need to see it, they're going to get it. And obviously, if we want to drill down and have a bunch of different emails, we can certainly do that. But we try to make it simple and just have one email address that's going out to the appropriate group. But everybody gets notified of the email, so they don't even have to go into Follow Up Boss to see what happened. So my sales director, he can now look and go, oh, great. Now we've got, someone that we need to be tracking. We got a buyer agreement signed, which means we're a little bit closer to getting hopefully some revenue. Now, what you'll see is that on this, you can see this section here was the type of appointment, and now the outcome is right underneath there. So when you start tracking your metrics of how many appointments do I need to go on and how many, what's the outcome? Did I win the appointment? Did I not win the appointment? When agents are filling out the form, they don't have to worry about telling us what happened in the appointment section itself. The form will actually drive that for them, which helps us with our metrics to be able to go back at the end of the year, into the quarter, and now help coach them to what their individual metrics are. And then as you see over here, the deal stage, let me update, refresh.
Yep, that's it, Matt.
So appointment met and buyers, it should be moving this over to deal stage. It should end up moving this over into buyer contract. And if it doesn't, we'll get with me here to make that update. And then over in this section, again, with the appointment set, this will end up driving and moving that over to appointment. That should end up going over into our appointment met, either future opportunity. With this one, I noted that they signed off, so it should end up moving over to an active customer.
And then it redirected, since it was a agreement signed, it automatically went to the next form that needed to be submitted, which was the agreement signed form. I think we're going to skip that form and go straight to pending though.
Okay. Yep. So once I bring this over and I want to go to pending, and that might be why I didn't switch everything over, is I didn't fill out the form completely.
So it went to met when the met form, the disposition form was submitted, then it redirected to the agreement signed form. And so I think that form would have needed to be submitted to have the
Let's kick off. Yep.
Yeah.
So our next stage at that point is now they're out going, looking at property. They can still go back in and book individual appointments for multiple showings using the same formula, and it keeps their stage in the right stage. and they can continue to set multiple appointments with that buyer without it changing the stage until they're ready to change the stage, which our next one would be our pending buyer form. And with this, I'm either going to choose, if this was already an active pending, I can cancel that pending, but I'm going to keep this as a transaction. And it's either a new construction, we're referring this out. I'm just going to say it's a regular transaction. I'm going to go ahead and put into the address here, St. Augustine, Florida. And then, so these are all the questions that we personally said, these are the things that we need to know about every transaction that comes in. What's the important one? How much are we making? What's our actual percentage that we're making? What's the effective date that the contract takes place? And then let's go ahead and get our closing date out there, quick closing. And again, all these red dots are required. So we do not allow them to skip these sections because we absolutely need to do these. Lead source, we just have our folks go ahead and copy and paste whatever is showing in Follow Up Boss. So that way our metrics and our tracking is correct. For us, we want to know if they are SOI for an agent. Where did that SOI come from? We have our transaction fee automatically loaded in there. So if you guys do a transaction fee, they can just have that input in there. So it's always in there. Seller paid closing costs. I'm going to put in this one. No, we're not going to have any seller paid closing costs. Pop her down there. If you have multiple transaction coordinators, this is where you would have the opportunity to choose which one. I'm not paying out a referral fee, and I don't have an ISA on that one. Is there an agent on the other side of the transaction? I'm going to put, yes, someone outside our team. When you do that, it actually opens up some additional questions that weren't there before. And I'm just going to get through these and
Yeah, and so we could do dynamic logic. So if a field equals this, then show these other fields. That way, your agents are only seeing the fields that are relevant, because in Follow Boss, it's just a big list of fields. Whether you're looking at custom fields on the lead or custom fields on the deal, it's just a big list of fields. There's no way for the agents to know what to fill out. And so we can map any of the data from the form to any of the fields in Follow Boss. So we can make sure to put the data where it needs to go, and the agents are confused on what they need to fill out.
there you go. Yep. And so in this case, we're going to tell them what type of loan. In this case, I'm going to say cash. Title company, here's our preferred. If you've got a title company you work with all the time, they could just build that right in there. So, you don't have to keep adding their information over and over again. For us, we want to know where's the paperwork. It's in our dot loop and it's in our Google Drive. Any notes about the contract itself. So if there's something, a little different than a traditional transaction, maybe there's a post occupancy that needs to happen. Maybe there's some additional closing costs, maybe contingent upon the sale of another property. We would put those in there because we want our administrative team to know what are the things that we need to be looking at during this conversation itself. And so again, we got right in there, and you can put all that example of what might be in there. And then the last thing is we will take a link to our Google Drive folder and make sure that is in there. And then when you hit submit, it doesn't like the dashes. As soon as I hit submit, again, the automation is going to go in place. You'll see the form gets filled out. This gets emailed to our transaction coordinator. So when she's looking at, she can actually print this right out if she wants, whatever tracking software you guys might be using with that. But we just built all the things that we knew that we needed to fill out in our tracking software so that we had all the bits of data. And it takes the agent, as you saw, maybe a minute or two to fill the form out. But this form saves our closing coordinator probably 30 to 45 minutes of time searching through the contract to get these specific details. As you can see, that opportunity now has the address up here. It has the pending stage. Now I'm in pending in my deals. So that's moved over. And now you'll see my stage is under contract, and you'll start to see that there's automations that are now going out, sending emails to this customer, basically congratulating them for being under contract, what to expect next. And over the next couple of days, while they're in that inspection periods, it's just all the things that we want to tell the customer that a lot of times we fail to, we forget to, we get busy. We have the emails going out, and those are driven by the phone deal and the deal stage. And because the agent's not responsible, or my closing coordinator is not responsible for manually making those changes or adding tags, by just filling out the form, it does what it's supposed to do.
Exactly. It just takes all the guesswork out.
Yep. And the cool thing is that again, this is one of those things that we want to be real time with our team, with everything that's happening. And so here was able to build a Zap so that when we have a new contract that's filled out, a new pending or a new listing, we have it where it automatically puts a post out on our Slack channel and it congratulates the person, gives a little detail about it. So that way our agents are getting recognized and rewarded right away when they fill these forms out.
Exactly. So it builds that habit. That little bit of celebration definitely helps. And so glad you mentioned the Slack automation. So, we could send data into a lot of other platforms. Our system can send webhooks into Zapier. So anything that Zapier can connect to, we can send the data. So Slack, we can send it into a spreadsheet. We have document upload fields where we could load documents and then we could add those documents to like Google Drive. The plan is we're working on a SkySlope integration now. We plan on doing a dot loop integration in Q1. So then we'll have a field on the form where you can search your transactions in dot loop, select the dot loop transaction, and it'll pull all the data into the form. So anything that's already in dot loop, you won't have to re-enter on the form if you've already entered it in a dot loop. Yeah, it's going to be awesome. We'll be able to potentially pull documents out of dot loop and move them into Google Drive. So it'll definitely automate a few more steps for you once that's up and running.
Yeah. And so again, for us, the biggest thing is that we know where people are in the process based on their deal stage or in their FUB stage. And we know that 95 to 99% of the time now it's accurate, especially if they filled out one form at all that gets on our radar. And now we know that we've got something that we can be tracking. And, hey, I love our team. They're going to miss opportunities. So they may miss something and not put the original appointment that they were going on. And so they just go right into the form and they skip to whatever stage they're actually in now. So if they didn't log the appointment, they didn't have to disposition anything, but they got their buyer brokerage agreement signed, they can go right into BBA signed, and then that'll create the deal stage and the FUB stage right where they're at. Again, if they miss that part and they go right to pending, right? They just woke up one day and now the buyer is in pending, they can start the stage right then and there. So it doesn't matter where you start, you can have that stage pick up at any stage of the process.
Because as we all know, for an agent with their sphere of influence, sometimes you don't hear about that until it's pending. And so you can start it from any stage. The system's very flexible. This is the Florida coastal team's stages, but there's no set in stone stages that you need to use. Our forms can be associated with any follow-up pipeline and stage. And so if you have a unique sales process or if you want to have a set of forms for referring deals out, and so you have like a referral pipeline to track your referrals, or if you do lending and you want to track your mortgage pipeline, very flexible. It can be used for anything.
Yeah, and like you say at the beginning, it opened up our minds to like, what forms could we add to do everything? And think about everything that we have people creating notes inside of FUB to alert people to do certain things. And so a big thing is on our listing side, we've got multiple different stages. We have an initial appointment set, but with that, our agent needs support. Our listing coordinator gets notified and they're just telling like, hey, what do I need to have done? I need a dot loop created. I need a package filled out. Here's the price point that the listing's going to be in. So all these things that they would normally be tagging and putting in a note for our coordinator, when do I need the appointment? When's the latest I need to pick up the package? All of those things are right in the form. And so there is no guesswork as to someone's going on a listing appointment. When do I need to have this information back to them so that they could go on that appointment? Once they go on that appointment and they get the listing agreement signed, now, okay, what do they need? When do the photos need to be? What listing package did they choose?
Yeah.
So think through those things of all those questions that you're asking your agents once they get to a certain stage with a buyer or seller and just put it in a form and then have that to drive everything that's going to happen with your follow-up boss.